Welcome back. As we just talked about, it was a busy week in our nation's capital, but also a busy week at Connecticut's capital, where all state legislators were called in to handle some pressing business. Dan Haar is a senior editor and opinion columnist with CT Insider, and he joins me now in Studio A. Welcome.
Great to be here.
So it was so much stuff, I stumbled through the T's because it was such a long list of things we were going to talk about you with, so we're going to try to go fast. There were these 8 e-cert bills, emergency cert.
2 bills, 4 e-cert issues in each
And we're going
one.
to talk about 3 of the issues among the 8 in the 2 bills.
One may ask why we needed 8 emergency bills in February, but that's, you know.
Well, let's try to talk about that too. Let's start with special education funding, Dan.
Special education funding. Special education is the responsibility of local school districts, towns, until and unless it comes to an excess cost per student and an overall excess cost. The state then covers it. That account is short, no surprise. Prices are going up for everything, and certainly services for students is going up. $40 million is needed right now by the towns. The legislature said, we're going to give them that money right now. The governor's office said, no, you can't. That might put us outside the rules for the budget. The legislature said, sorry, too bad, we're doing it. Now they're challenging the governor to veto or accept that bill.
Another one that was an e-cert was NIL adjustments. It changes how universities can pay athletes.
Oh, boy, that's a slippery slope. You know, I've been saying all along, look, no old-fashioned sports fan likes that athletes are being paid, but of course, there are lots of ways to do it. As each method of paying them, NIL 2 years ago came about, there becomes another problem. The problem now is that schools have no way of recruiting athletes, and they have no way of making sure that the athletes that they want to get the money unless they control the money. So there was a suit against the NCAA. There was a settlement. Each university can have up to $20.5 million. The money will not come from taxpayers, but the real question is, who precisely is going to decide which kids get that money? This starts to look more and more like professional sports with each passing day.
We got to move on to the next one, but I see you oftentimes in the UConn basketball broadcast, sitting there in the crowd. Basketball players, I'm not saying at UConn, but basketball players have been getting paid forever. It's just now we know about it and we talk about it.
They haven't been getting this kind of money.
True.
They got $20,000 or $30,000, not $1 million.
I think that's true. All right, so car taxes, that's another e-cert bill.
Yeah, the car tax, I think a year or two ago, they changed the way towns can tax cars from the value of that car based on the Blue Book to starting with a manufacturer's suggested retail price and ratcheting down from there with each year. Turns out that formula left the towns short. What this bill does is it readjusts so that the towns can charge more based on the same formula. First year is 90%, second year is 85%, and so forth, instead of starting at 85%. So you're going to pay a little bit more, but the towns have an option to not do it.
Real quick, because I want to get through this list, it's going to be the speed round. You think this is the legislature exerting their power against the governor?
These e-certs are exactly that, and the speaker even said at one point, we're not Congress. We're going to get things done. And so if the atmosphere nationally is we're going to go move, that's spilling over to the state legislature. No question about it.
Let's do the speed round. Lamont's proposed tax cuts.
He wants to add to the property tax $50, bringing it up to $350 per eligible household. Other people want a much bigger thing than that. He wants to lower fees, license fees for nurses, electricians, and a whole bunch of other professions. That's not very controversial. The question is whether what the legislature wants will happen, which are child tax credit and some other things that are big. But the child tax credit is the big dispute.
Bringing the blood alcohol limit for a DUI to .05.
Same debate every year. It's not going to happen, and neither is the open container. We're going to remain an open container state, jeopardizing federal dollars. BAC is not going down.
Dog licenses switching from yearly renewal to every 3 years.
It's paperwork. Everybody loves it. Less paperwork. I don't know that it'll pass just because of time. These types of bills sometimes get held up, but there's not a lot of controversy about that.
And that was clerks saying that they're overwhelmed having to do it every year, a lot of these town clerks.
That's right.
Bear hunting, it's even some environmental groups have said maybe it's necessary, right?
Yeah, the problem with the bear hunt is that it's really the Republicans. It's a partisan issue, and it's more Republicans than Democrats, and there are more Democrats than Republicans, especially if urban Democrats don't really care about a bear hunt. And so that clash still exists. But Massachusetts has one, as you know, and it seems to work up there. So, you know, people don't like shooting furry things. That's the problem.
Only Connecticut and Rhode Island don't have some level of bear hunting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Those are the only two states that don't have some kind of bear hunt. And we cover the stories all the time with bears getting in cars and houses and Maybe it's a thing. We'll see what happens.
Well, the Bears, there can only be 3 Bears. They need a lot of land in Rhode Island. They can't.
That's right. It's very tight there. I want to talk about some lighter bills, and one is movie start times.
Oh, Senator Looney, the Senate President pro tem, had a big national spate of publicity over that. He wants movie houses to be required to tell you when the actual feature film starts, instead of having to sit through if you don't want to. All those movies. The other day, I was actually late. I was late 10 seconds because I left 20 minutes and it was only 18. So he wants that notice. That's, the movie houses say, we need the money.
All right, and then this is the important stuff that we're working on.
That's exactly right. We'll see if your yogurt container shrinks. We'll take care of that too.
Those are some of the things that are going on at the Capitol, and I think the most interesting thing that you said is that you're never late. I don't believe you've ever been on time for an interview at this show.
I don't say I'm never late. What I said was I'm rarely late for movies because I have to sit and watch the trailers.
One of my favorite guests, Dan Haar from CT Insider. Dan, thank you so much for being with us. You can find Dan's columns by going to ctinsider.com. You can also find them in the Hearst newspapers all across the state, including the New Haven Register, the Waterbury Republican American, and the Journal-Inquirer.